So I'm joined now by Debbie Stanford-Kristiansen, CEO of Novo Cinemas, by Dr. Khaled Al-Dhaher, who's Managing Director of Accenture in Saudi Arabia, and Ghada Jarbou, who's General Manager of Global Liquidity and Cash Management at Saudi British Bank. Please welcome my panelists. Ghada, I want to start with you and the G20. What real outcomes can we expect? If I'm sitting opposite you in 12 months' time, what has the G20 done on gender diversity? What would your answer be?
First of all, good morning, everyone. As you know, G20 is hosted this year in Saudi Arabia, and we're very fond on the agenda when it comes to women in business. So one of the task forces, there is no task force under the G20 specifically related, other than the W20, but under the Business 20, they have created a theme called Women in Business, which is an action council, to discuss and come up with some policies and recommendations that's taking up to the B20 chairman to be discussed with the G20 leaders. And these discussions are going to happen throughout the year until the submission of the final paper.
So you're on that task force?
I'm on that task force. So the task force, other than the chairman and the deputy, there are around 100 members from across the G20 countries, and some of them are not from the G20 countries, coming from different backgrounds, different experiences on implementation of diversity. So the main aim is to have these active discussions in these sessions that are held on a monthly basis in order to build on the drafts and refine them as we go. What we're discussing is mainly falling or addressing the basic issues when it comes to gender disparities around employment, professional advancement, and we decided to look at mainly three streams, which is basically leveling the play field and looking at entrepreneurship, which is something big everyone is talking about, not only across women but across the market, and of course amplifying synergies. So this is where the activities are taking place, and we're looking to come up with very specific, objective, achievable, and measurable actions in order to make sure that there is an impact and that there's something all countries related can look at and build on as a plan for them to progress from there.
Debbie, we've been talking about, not you and I, but you separately and me separately, diversity and the importance of it, the profitability gains of it, for what seems like decades, frankly. And yet progress has been slow. Do we need a new way of looking at it? Do we need a new model for looking at diversity?
I think we are starting to see that change. I come from the industry of entertainment, which is still very, very male-dominated.
Yeah.
I'm probably the first female CEO in entertainment in the Middle East. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
You know, there should be more female CEOs. But I think companies are really starting to become aware of the contribution that having a more balanced workforce can enable for the company in terms of, you know, growth opportunity, revenue growth. I think just going back to what Ghada said, it's not about having men versus women. It's about creating a level playing field of diversity, because we all have different strengths that we bring to the table. And we need to grow and learn from those strengths. So for me, it's about having the right person in the right role, whether that's male or female, but having more of a balance. And that's something that I've strived to achieve myself within my current organisation.
Khaled, what initiatives have you seen? I mean, Accenture's experience itself in this area is interesting. So perhaps we can start with what Accenture's doing in terms of diversity.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for the invitation, and good morning, everyone. So Accenture 3 years ago announced a target to achieve parity with our more than 500,000 people around the world. And the target to achieve that is 2025. So from 2017 to 2025, that is a big objective to achieve. Today we are at 46%. So it starts with leadership. I think it's extremely important to say, you know, leadership needs to say, we need to achieve this We know the business objectives and the business value in creating a diverse and an inclusive environment. And we need to make sure that we are moving clearly and solidly towards that. We also made the objective that by 2020, we want to reach 25% at the leadership level. And you know, in this past year, we have enhanced our position, so we've achieved that position. We have more than 36% of new leaders coming into Accenture that are female leaders. So it's extremely important to define the targets. It's extremely important to identify the value that brings to the business, because you know, you don't want the target to be a tangential target. You want it to be core to bringing value to the business. And we've also done research that shows that when you have teams, organizations that have diverse leadership, you know, everybody wins, not only the female you know, part of the organization. Also, male leaders and employees also grow and create a better environment for everyone.
Ghada, the Vision 2030, diversity is a big part of that. Again, curious about your views about what actual actions you hope to see or expect to see to achieve some of those goals, which are ambitious by global standards.
So the KPI that's related to women employment targets increasing it to 30% by 2030. I believe today we're at 23%, and the progress is going on. We're still below the average numbers on a global, let's say, mature market, so
Yes,
it's at
yeah.
48%. But I believe we're going towards the right direction. What we'd like to see, or I'd like to see personally, is having women more into the future jobs, or what they call STEM, which is science,
Yeah.
technology, engineering, and mathematics, where penetration is way less than 20%. We're talking about cloud computing, technology, artificial intelligence. And in the morning, the professor was talking about the new cities and the new initiatives that we have in the country. So how can you attract youth from both genders if you're not really supporting jobs in these areas? Under the Vision 20, a lot of fields have been open, which were kind of off limits for females, when it comes to tourism and entertainment, when it comes to areas such as flight attending and even taxi driving. So there are a lot of sectors or jobs that are being opened and tapped, and we want to see more into that area, because I mean, at the end of the day, this only impacts on reducing poverty and increasing the GDP. On entrepreneurship, I think Accenture study says that entrepreneurship, if it was supported for females, it could bring the GDP up to 6%, and that's a big number.
Entrepreneurship is a big issue, I mean, across the developing world,
Yeah.
not only bringing women into the workforce, but small businesses
Exactly.
and the like. So I do want to explore that a little further later. But Khaled, tech industries in particular seem to have a bad experience, or bad track record, I should say, in terms of diversity, because, well, tell me, why is that the case, and what's happening in the tech space?
I think it's a very important point that, you know, in the tech industry in general, we observe that there isn't a lot of participation for women. Actually, if you zoom out a little bit and you look at the past 30 years, what is the percentage of women entrepreneurs? Companies that had at least one
Yeah.
as a founder in these new organizations.
Yeah.
Less than 1%. Less than 1%.
It's extraordinarily low.
consistently
Yes.
over the past 30 years in diverse industries. But tech, because tech has been a very big part of this innovation that has been happening, we also see that, unfortunately, when you do not have women participation in technology, all this new technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, you know, robotics, will also have some unconscious bias. I mean, and we've also research has shown that, you know, the technology itself has a bias against females because of the background of the creation of that technology, and the more female inclusion is part of that direction for technology organizations, the more that unconscious bias is going to go away, and there will be more participation for women. So there could be other reasons, again, this STEM
is a big part of
is a big part of that,
yeah.
and I think it is an important objective to address. I think, there could be other factors, in terms of work environment, the creation of an environment that is more conducive to equality, I think is also important. Regulation is important, again, across the world.
Yes.
And this is not something that's happening in the Middle East or in Saudi Arabia. If you look across the world, this is a statistic that applies to countries in Europe, applies to the US, applies to Asia.
Debbie, in the entertainment industry, you said you're the first female CEO in this region. Again, an industry notorious for lack of diversity at senior levels. Are you seeing dramatic shifts in that particular industry?
As I said, it's slow, but it's happening. There are a number of initiatives that have been announced in the last sort of year. UNIC, which is the global body based in Brussels for the cinema industry itself, have launched a mentorship program for women to encourage more women to move into our industry, but also to encourage women to have the level of support and encouragement that they need to succeed. I was fortunate to be asked to be part of that program last year, and it's been an incredible journey this last year. I think mentorship is very, very important for women. Sometimes we lack confidence, we doubt ourselves, yet we do have the ability, but sometimes it needs somebody else to encourage us and to support us, to bring out the best in us. We've also formed a non-profit association which was actually launched in the US earlier this year, Women in Entertainment. And we've started, I think, 2 months ago, we already have 500 members. And these are women who are operating within our industry, whether that's in marketing, in sales, in IT, but again, gives them a platform and a voice. So we're trying to get the message out there that this is an industry that women can take part in. If I look at my own organisation, when I joined 6 years ago, we had a ratio of 80-20 men versus women. And it wasn't that I decided that I want to change that. It was more important about having a balanced workforce so that we could create more opportunity going forward. If I look at our customer base, we have a very, very multicultural customer base. There are in Dubai alone over 200 different nationalities. That means you need to have a diverse workforce to be able to serve those customers and give them the right type of experience. If you look at, okay, let's talk about consumers. There are over 7 billion consumers globally. 50% of those consumers are women. Women who make a decision on what they're going to purchase or where they're going to spend that money. And I think that's around $51 trillion. So it's important that you have women in your workforce who understand the behavioural patterns or the spending patterns of other women. The same with men, understanding the behavioural patterns of other men. So for me, it's about having that balanced workforce, and slowly it is changing. Here in Saudi, I mean, the entertainment industry is really taking off. Cinema, the demand is outweighing supply right now. You've got your first homegrown cinema chain, Movie Cinemas, which is, who would have thought that 3 years ago, that Saudi would have its own homegrown cinema chain? And I'm starting to see a lot more women moving into the industry, and I think as the industry evolves here, we'll start to see a lot more women taking part in this industry and growing. And I hope to see, a female CEO running cinemas here in the very near future. I think that'll be so exciting to see that level of diversity.
Okay. A lot of the studies, almost all of them, show that there's a bottom line benefit to having a more diverse workforce. Accenture's made great progress, gone from 40 to 46% in just a couple of years. Is there any way you can directly correlate that to your performance bottom line?
Well, definitely. There is great value in having an environment that is diverse and that enables all the employees to be effective, efficient, and have the right opportunity to grow based on merit. So there isn't a specific number that is associated with that, but but we believe strongly that that is something that helps the growth of Accenture, like helps the engagement, as we were mentioning, with our clients who appreciate that type of direction. Again, our participation with the G20 here in Saudi Arabia, for example, in the G20 with the women in business is a clear message that says this is something that is important. It's important for Saudi Arabia. It's important for Accenture. It's important for the rest of the world. The impact is clear, and we strongly believe that directionally will help organizations going forward.
Okay. Very happy to take questions from the audience, but Ghada, I want to come to you on that entrepreneurship issue that you mentioned. It's not just for women, but will potentially open opportunities for women in Saudi, in this region, more generally. But is entrepreneurship a cultural thing? I mean, is it sort of part of the DNA? We sometimes refer to nations as being very entrepreneurial and others not quite so. How does one encourage and inspire entrepreneurs in Saudi?
So I think, yes, it has an aspect of culture. So a lot of females don't look at it as a career or a wealth-generating job. They look at it more about related to sustainability. So there is a lot of education and skill building that requires to be there. There has to be an environment to foster and educate about entrepreneurship. They need to look at it differently. And from the other side, probably in the other also parts of the world, somehow they're not looked at that seriously. So when you see women pitching for their projects, they're not taken as seriously as men when it comes to funding these projects. So these are probably the areas that we need to look at when it comes to entrepreneurship.
That's interesting. I mean, the digital revolution is certainly helping entrepreneurs generally and allowing small businesses to go to market that previously couldn't. And that will, I'd imagine, help diversity. But essentially you say that they find it hard to get funding, and find it hard to get funding for some of these projects. Yeah, interesting. Open up the floor to questions. Just put your hand in the air, and if anyone's interested in jumping into this debate, please, over there.
Hi, how are you? Ian Malcolm from the Saudi British Bank. One of the points you raised was around mentoring and the role of mentoring in developing a more diverse workplace. I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit more around that and how individuals, both as mentees or mentors, can actually try and help drive that agenda, especially here within this region.
Okay, well, I'll talk about one of the mentees that I'm mentoring right now, who's actually based in London. She's a young woman, she's 25, and when we were paired together by UNIC, we sat down and we talked about different areas where she felt she needed to focus on during that 1 year. We have a 1 year period, and every month we have a call, or sometimes face-to-face if the opportunity arises, if she has a business trip. So we talked about different areas. One, how to cope with work-life balance or work-life integration, as it's now known. How to make yourself be seen in an environment which is very male-dominated. How to, even down to where she's young, she's married, she wants to think about a family, but when is the right time, because now she's worried that she will lose her opportunity to grow her career. So we had a structured approach. Not everybody takes that approach, but we put together a structured approach where for the following session we would talk about what she'd achieved in terms of putting actions into place and how they had turned out for her. So I think every mentor-mentee relationship is different. It's about what you want to achieve from that. But I think setting out clear goals and defining those goals together and measuring them as you go along is the best way to see, to measure that success.
I'm sorry, is that part of the Accenture plan? I mean, you're talking 500,000 people just managing that number of staff and trying to get numbers up. Are there formal policies in place along the lines of mentoring?
Absolutely. I think it is a key part of leadership and a key part of growth that we identify the opportunities for mentorship. And the opportunities are always there. The key success factor is then, how do we share that?
Yeah.
In general, people perceive this to be a one-to-one opportunity. Sometimes we try to create opportunities where it is one-to-many, and we've seen that also has created great value. It's also important to have some structure and the use of technology to help to be across the world, because again, some of the challenges, some people think it is unique to them or to their environment, but the reality is it's not. It is something that we've seen across the world. So the question is, how do you make sure that if there is a mentor that has gone through certain experiences, can actually share it with others in as much a network as possible around the world? We've seen that has created great value.
Okay. Just about out of time, but Ghada, final question to you. Does the private sector need to do more in Saudi? Because a lot of the initiatives seem to be coming from the public sector. Can the private sector accelerate its efforts to boost diversity?
Well, definitely. It has to be part of the strategy. So for us in SAB, for instance, diversity is a strategic item on our agenda. We do have very clear KPIs for that is monitored by the management, reported to the leadership ongoingly. And we make sure that we are aligning with the Vision 2030 openly and clearly. Again, what could not be measured could not be achieved. So there has to be very clear and measurable and achievable goals that the private sector has to look at. There has to be a coordinated effort between the government, the businesses, and the nonprofit to make sure that all of these changes take place correctly and in a more interlinked manner, per se. We do have a lot of initiatives, as mentioned, that probably covers a bigger group internally. So we do have some initiatives on coaching and mentoring, but we do more a broader program on women development specifically. That's called Springboard, and it's not something specific to SAB, it's something globally known. We make sure that we give them the right tools, the right direction, the right role models to help them go and put their place themselves in the right place in the marketplace.
Okay, look, I'm very sorry we're out of time. There's so much to talk about in this issue, but very good luck in your B20 task force, and we'll be back here next year quizzing you closely on what recommendations you've made, whether they were embraced by the government and whether policy changes have come to it. So no pressure on you there. But ladies and gentlemen, please thank my panelists.